Hi, it's Chris Pratt, and I have the responsibility for new and emerging areas in IBM, like high-performance computing. I've worked with Linux and open source projects, and most recently I'm very involved in the IBM Big Green initiative. So Project Big Green is basically an encapsulation of all of the initiatives IBM has around the environment, and it's to describe what we do for ourselves as well as areas of research such as water management, new forms of energy, using computers to solve problems, and the kind of offerings that we have for our customers in this environment as well. The reality is, if you look at what it means, it's about sustainability. Sustainability for ourselves, our own business, our employees, our customers, our shareholders. As the climate changes, as IBM changes, as the world changes, we have to change with it. So across Project Big Green, there are a number of environmental areas that IBM is looking at. For example, the Great Rivers Project, where we're understanding the 7 largest rivers in the world and where they're going, and we're in consultation with a large number of universities. IBM being a technology company and being a leader in this space, there are obviously the sustainability issues for ourselves as we move forward into whatever the world has in store for us in terms of the changing dynamic in climate and energy. But also, the type of research we engage ourselves in is almost unbridled, because that's the way we'll attract the best talent. Not only do we bring researchers to it with interests in all areas, not just computation, but we bring a great deal of experience with handling large volumes of data and understanding very, very complex problems. So one of the things IBM is able to do is reduce the impact on the environment by calculating the ways things happen. So we're able to simulate explosions, or we're able to simulate crash tests, or we're able to simulate the change of a path of a river or a climate system by using computers. So we have researchers in biology, we have researchers in climate, we have researchers in what people would consider unrelated fields. But it's when you bring the people from these different fields together that the innovation really happens, because they have a different approach and a different way of seeing the same problem. The fact that we understand fluid dynamics and the cooling in computers allows us to understand the flow of rivers and water management, as well as the fact that we understand how energy is used very, very accurately inside a tiny microchip, means we can understand how it's used at a macro level in terms of industry and the planet and the places in which we live today. IBM Canada is very involved in Big Green. Not only do we have research scientists contributing to the projects, but probably our biggest success story is our Bromont plant, which is the world's largest assembly plant for chips for IBM. And at Bromont, we've managed to divert over 97% of our organic waste to recycling plants. We've been able to reduce our energy consumption by 6% annually. In fact, every year we're able to reduce the energy. Not only that, but in less than 10 years, we've reduced our carbon dioxide emissions by over 50% at that plant. I think if we want to try and understand what it costs business to run their computers and what the impact is, I think it's fairly easy to talk about a rack of servers. And an individual rack of servers can consume as much power as around 15 average Canadian homes. So when we start to understand how much energy is being driven into a data center, for a data center manager to walk in and start counting the racks, and instead of looking at the racks of computers, start looking at them in terms of the environmental impact and say each one of those racks could represent upwards of 10 to 15 homes worth of energy. So when you start to better utilize those racks, you start to make a real difference. Now I think businesses have the alternative to use things like virtualization, which is a good industry word for sharing of hardware across multiple applications, that allows people to say, let's maybe virtualize what we have, and rather than go and buy another computer, let's put it in a logical computer on the hardware we already have. And that makes a very, very significant difference. It's probably the single most important thing people can do today. As IBM and our partners work on new types of software, what we're able to do is put into place intelligent software where we can define the maximum power to be consumed by the system. And the software, in combination with the hardware, will manage the consumption of the processor to a not-to-exceed point, which is completely different from the approach earlier where it was do it as fast as you can. Now we're able to say, well, I don't need that result in half a second. And then the software will be intelligent enough to manage down the resource it requires and deliver the result with a considerably reduced environmental impact. I think it's very easy when you talk about small business for people to glaze over and say, that's not me. But I think that's an irresponsible approach. It's kind of like the garbage problem is not mine because I only have one bag when I take it out to the street. The reality is, if you could get down to half a bag, you're making a difference. And when you take the number of small businesses, if the small business owner can look at the number of computers they have, and they can start turning off the computers they're not using, and they can start driving up the utilization of the computers they are using, and just take a look at things they're doing that they don't have to do. If every one of them makes a small difference, together it will be a large difference. When businesses look at computing, I think we've come through an era when a new application came along, people would go out and buy a new computer because, you know, the hardware was cheap, the software was expensive, but the people were priceless. But yes, I believe consumers and business are starting to take into account more the overall cost of the technology and its impact when assessing a purchase decision versus just going for the pure sticker price on day one. Certainly, energy-efficient technologies will pay for themselves. In fact, just the virtualization and the sharing of computers will, if you're able to reduce your servers by a 16-to-1 ratio, it will probably pay for itself in just the power and cooling costs in 3 to 5 years alone. But I think it would be naive of us and other people to assume organizations and consumers are prepared to pay a significant price for more energy-efficient hardware. IBM is not just about computing. It's around all the facilities. It's around the distribution, the logistics. And so I think what you have to do is take it up a level from just the amount of compute power being used and the amount of energy being consumed by the computers and understand how you can use those computers to solve more complex problems. Can these computers help you find a better route to market? Can they help you find a better time to actually deliver something? Can they help you understand the patterns of delivery? Can they model a better packaging technology for the product you're producing? Can they monitor your assembly line and understand where the inefficiencies are? All of those questions, rhetorical questions, have the answer yes, of course they can. So it's the application of the technology that IBM brings, not just the change in the technology itself, but the application of technology to business that will allow you to reap these savings and rewards involved in energy use. Well, IBM is very active not only in what we're helping our customers doing, but also internally. And I can tell you since about 1990 through 2005, we reduced our own carbon footprint by about 40%. And we've done that through a number of different initiatives. We have over 300,000 employees, so we have active lighting systems in our buildings. We've raised the temperatures in our buildings in summer and lowered them in winter. We also employ some pretty interesting technologies. For example, our largest data center in Canada is the Maclean lab in the corner of Warden and Highway 7. And that data center produces a tremendous amount of heat. And we're using that energy to warm the pool at the YMCA up the road. So it's about better utilization of the energy. And so inside IBM, we have an over 98% recovery rate for all of our own internal hardware. And we have very rigorous methods in place to make sure we, A, recycle what we have and take it back through the process, or B, we cascade technology. So as a high-end user no longer requires the high-end computer, we're able to move it down to somebody who requires less power as the computer ages.